If I could only read your mind with superhuman power, life would be a breeze sometimes. The good stuff's in between the lines. My thoughts and my feelings still tell 1,000 lies. But now you're taking away my soul.
Welcome to the Good Stuff in Between podcast with me, Shaun Milne. This is a series where we go behind the scenes of the music industry, seeking out some advice, creativity and stories from all those making it happen, hoping somehow to inspire others on their own journey. In episode 6 I'm lucky enough to chat with Kevin Mackay, Sustainability Co-ordinator with DF Concerts and Events. He delved deep into the challenges and opportunities for live music events and embracing sustainability as a major issue, how his role came about, and where he sees the future for organisations like his in embracing such forward-thinking change. He was knowledgeable and generous with his thinking, and also revealed how treating people with respect and empathy, studying data, and having a real passion for both sides of his role have been crucial in its early success. Episode 6 Kevin is streaming now. I hope you enjoy it.
The good stuff's in between the lines.
I'm with Kevin Mackay, Sustainability Co-ordinator with DF Concerts. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
We're sitting here in Glasgow. Beautiful sunny day, unseasonal. It seems only apt that this is the time we talk about sustainability in the music industry. Can you explain a little bit about what your role is and how it came to be?
As Sustainability Co-ordinator at DF Concerts, I work with our supply chain to try and make the organisation as environmentally sustainable as we can. So when I say supply chain, I'm talking about all the various stakeholders that we work with to build our festivals, to power our festivals, to manage our waste, to deliver the goods and services that we use, the traders that come and work with us, the bar operators that come and work with us. And I also work with the manager of King Tut's and the manager of our office spaces to try and develop initiatives that are going to improve the environmental sustainability of the business.
Let's face it, it's not going to be dull and there's plenty going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was this a new role for DF or for something that already existed?
No, this is a brand new role. I started in April last year, 2022. Fiona Ellis, who leads on the strategic side of the business in terms of sustainability, she brought me in just before the summer, and to say that it was a baptism of fire would be potentially an understatement.
Summer being the quiet season, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a background of having worked in events previously, but this is my first role working in sustainability, and having not done so before, it was a great opportunity to observe and learn about how sustainability fit into the music industry and into the festival industry. But I'm not sure if you're aware, but last year, 2022, was a particularly busy year for the events industry. DF Concerts itself had a record-breaking year in terms of the tickets that were sold and the number of people attending the gigs that we put on. That was as a result of the bounce back from COVID.
So I saw some numbers. I saw that DF put on, I think it was from August or between June and August last year, it was like more than 1,000 events. It was a summer season. Yeah. There was, I think, something like £72 million pumped into local economies.
Yep.
It was huge. It's 13th busiest organisation of its type in Europe, 22nd in the world.
Yeah.
So that's a huge scale.
It is huge, and so we sold about 500,000 tickets in Scotland last year. For me, that kind of shows the kind of enormity of the task that I have trying to coordinate sustainability for such an organisation. As I said, one of the challenges that I have is that particularly with regards to the festival space, which is where I spend a lot of my time and energy focused, is we as promoters put on these events. And we have our event management team, we have our marketing team, and our promoters and booking team, finance team, all these departments that drive that. But the delivery of it on the ground happens as a result of contractors that we work with, the production team, the site management, IT, the traders and the bars that I mentioned before.
And that's like a military operation, isn't it? It's like setting up a village time after time after time.
Yeah, exactly. So, or a small town in some cases. When we do that, there's two ways of looking at it. It's a huge challenge because you have this wide variety of agencies to work with, and that's not to mention working with the local authorities as well. So you've got different challenges with regards to licensing or what the local authorities' particular agenda is with regards to environmental sustainability. And trying to work with them on what their goals are too. So that's a challenge, but also represents an opportunity. I feel very privileged to have the position that I have sitting in the midst of all of that. So the way I see my role is ultimately as a kind of diplomatic role. I'm expected to be the person that manages the data that we're gathering. And that's a huge part of what I do, is gather data on the energy that we're consuming, the waste, the travel and transport to and from the site. If I'm doing that effectively, that then gives me the information that I need to then communicate the impact that any initiatives that we're putting into place is actually having.
Okay, well, let's take a step back then. When Fiona brought you into the business, DF has been around for a long, long time. It's like, I'm probably old enough to remember it being Dance Factory back in the early 80s. The time of TLN, people are getting their gig on, and it's evolved and grown, gave us festivals like Tina Park, Connect, Transmit Now, summer sessions and everything. When you were having those initial conversations, this is very future looking. It might be a necessity for the business, but it feels to me more as if this is what we should be doing as a responsible business in Scotland with such a large audience, as you've alluded to there. And they brought you in to be that anchor, to analyse this data, and as you say, a diplomatic role to affect change on the organisation. What were those early conversations like? I mean, did you come with a plan? Was it just suck it and see? How do you define such an important role?
So when I first started in this role, I hadn't worked in environmental sustainability before. During the pandemic, I did a master's degree in diplomacy and international security. Now, that might not seem necessarily that relevant when I'm saying it, but what happened was during the course of that degree, I became massively interested in the climate crisis and the socio-economic, macroeconomic scale of what was happening there.
Is this at Strathclyde Uni?
Strathclyde Uni,
okay, yeah.
And I absolutely loved the academic side of it, and to the extent that I almost ended up moving on to do a PhD, actually. But then, not long after I'd finished that, a friend of mine, Shaun Milne, who works for DF, reached out and said, look, I know you have an interest in maybe starting to work in this space in sustainability. This new role's just come up with DF Concerts. I think you should go for it. I think it'd be perfect. Because I had this background of having worked in tour management and production management and venue management, so I kind of knew that side of the business. So I reached out to Fiona and said, look, I'm not a sustainability professional. I know that's kind of what you're looking for, but I do have this passion, this drive, this understanding of the big picture and the events experience that you need. So maybe we can work together towards developing a strategy that's going to get the business to where it needs to be. So our first conversations were really centred around what is the value that sustainability can bring to DF Concerts. Because we know that environmental sustainability, reducing the impact of the business in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, in terms of the waste created, that is absolutely paramount from a climate crisis perspective. But in terms of selling that to the people running the business, we need to establish what kind of value is that going to bring? How are we going to use sustainability to grow the business? And also for DF as the entity that it is in Scotland, the influence that we have to affect change with other organisations, like with the and also with the rest of our supply chain, like I just described earlier. Our strategy really is built around acknowledging that we can measure what we do to high standards. We can invest in new technologies and so on. But really, for me, the key is convincing the people that we're working with that there's value in what we're trying to do.
So let's face it, for most people who attend gigs or concerts, the most tangible thing that would spring to mind would be plastic cups. We've moved to reusable cups. In Scotland, we're very lucky in that single-use plastic is banned, but we still see the containers going around. We still see people have to eat, drink, enjoy themselves. But there's bigger things to look at. There's energy use. There's sound systems, got lights, got new things coming through in hydro-treated vegetable oils. We've got green hydrogen. We've got composting. We've got all manner of data that you can now measure to look at everything from water flows to kilometre miles that people are travelling, in terms of trying to persuade people not to bring their cars or the logistics of transport, etc. For you, amongst all that, what sticks out as being perhaps key to achieving what you guys are trying to do? And what excites you that's coming around the corner that perhaps we haven't looked at yet? I mean, I was reading an article to do with Oil Festival in Norway, for instance, where we talk about how the change to the food menus has dramatically cut down the carbon footprint, ditching meat. Is that the sort of thing that we'll see in Scotland in time?
Short answer is yes, we will see that. There is a huge appetite to move the industry in that direction. And that comes from the political agenda as much as it does anything else in Scotland. So yes, we will see all of that. There's two things mainly: energy and transport, energy use and transport, and the food and beverages. That's the 3 or 4 areas that we need to be focused on the most. Because one thing that I'm quite fortunate in my role with is that there's already been a lot of research done on the impact of festivals. There's organisations like A Greener Future and Julie's Bicycle who have invested a lot of time and effort over the last 5 to 10 years establishing where the majority of the emissions come from in our industry. And we know that audience travel and transport has a sizable chunk of the footprint, sometimes as much as 80%. Not always that much, could be as low as 30 or 40%. It's an area that we've only just measured this year at DF, so I don't actually have those figures yet for ourselves. But that's an external area that is we have influence on, but we don't have direct control. So for us in the transport space, at least, it's about finding partnerships on a local level that are going to help us to develop that. And one of the main areas there is helping people get home from our events, having trains and the subway open and in Glasgow, the trams available in Edinburgh, the bus services, coaches, as much public transport as we possibly can, and the encouragement of car sharing.
Does that influence where you decide to put on a gig, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly has become the case for us. As you would probably be aware, we brought Connect Festival back last year. So that was a huge move by the business to put that on at the Royal Highland Centre, which is a great site for us. It's reasonably central It's near Ingliston next to Edinburgh Airport, and it's connected via tram. There's loads of space nearby for buses to park. It's got plenty of grid power for us to use, so we don't need to bring as many generators to the site. Sustainability is built into the decision making when it comes to selecting the site there, for sure.
What kind of data can you gather from a site like that? So just a year or so into the job now, how are you measuring the kind of things that you need in order to go on and update your reports and define what you do for, say, the next 12 months?
A good example would be our power management and energy efficiency plan. So that started with this year with asking our power contractor to not only provide us information on the amount of fuel that we're using in the generators, but also to look at the kilowatt hours, the peak power, the running times, just getting as much information as we possibly can from across the site so that we can understand how efficiently the energy that we're consuming actually is being used. The reason for that is that there's other festivals that have already done this. So I'm not just doing this arbitrarily. I have taken this decision to advocate for power management and energy efficiency because one of the ways that we measure the efficiency of the energy that we consume at festivals is how many millilitres of fuel you're using per ticket holder. Some festivals are getting that down to about 100 millilitres. We are starting from last year something like 400 millilitres. So that gives you an indication of what's actually possible. And if we do that, then A, we're reducing the emissions from the energy consumed on the site. B, we're transporting fewer generators because we're using them more efficiently. And if we are doing that, then it also costs us less money because we're transporting less stuff and we're using less fuel. So it makes economic sense as much as it does environmental sense.
So I read that your average concert goer, across all the UK, it seems like 25 kilograms of carbon they generate across, going to gigs in a year. What responsibility would you say lies not just on promoters and organisers, but on us as music fans as well?
I think that is indicative of a larger question, isn't it? It's not, because that depends on how much responsibility a person takes for their personal carbon footprint in general.
There's things we can do. We can car share, we can choose public transport, we can decide what we're going to eat or drink at a festival, that kind of thing. But do you detect reluctance, or are you seeing people being more and more engaged in that process?
I think it's about giving people the opportunity to do things more sustainably and empowering them to do so. So we are putting on the show, and as we recognise that there's a demand for shows that people can get to safely and leave safely, and one of the best ways of doing that, particularly if they've been drinking at the gig, is to use public transport. So that there's a benefit there, both from an environmental standpoint and in terms of their well-being.
You can have more fun as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can have more fun. So I can sell the environmental sustainability angle to only a certain demographic. Not everybody is going to have the same amount of investment in that from a personal standpoint. But if you can help people recognise that the more sustainable option is also the more fun option, it's the option that's going to cost them less. Perhaps it can be cost them less in terms of time rather than money. It doesn't necessarily have to be a financial difference. But my point is that when it comes to the audience, or when it comes to anybody else along that supply chain that I talked about earlier, it's about looking at things from their perspective and thinking empathically and saying, what is it that I can say to this individual or to this group of people that's going to help me meet my goals with regards to reducing the impact of the event.
Also, DF have been involved in bringing through all sorts of talent over the years, everyone from Pill and the Teeny to wherever else you can think of. And among them, I think I'm right in saying one of the first Scottish gigs for Coldplay was through DF. Now, they've obviously gone on their own journey of trying to reduce the impact their global tours have. What do you think about that in terms of artists helping lead that particular change? And is it something you are finding at this stage? It might be a bit premature, but are you finding they are asking these kind of questions in terms of where's our power going to come from, or are we allowed to do X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, I mean, Coldplay are leading the charge in terms of making it very public what they're doing, and they're the first artist that I'm aware of that has put a level of investment and scrutiny into their impact with regards to greenhouse gas emissions. I don't know if you read the report, but they were aiming for a 50% reduction versus 2019. They got to, I think, 47 or 49%, which is not bad, to be honest, because it's an extreme challenge, and the guys that have done that have done an incredible job.
It was just one drum kit too many, wasn't it?
Yeah, not sure, but it would have been amazing to hit 50%. But I think that what that shows is that they put so much time and effort and money into it, and it still wasn't quite there. So it shows you how big of a challenge it is. Because if Coldplay can't meet that 50%, then it makes you think, well, who else is going to be able to? To answer your question about the whether artists are asking for it, though, yes, absolutely. It's one of the ways that we can measure that is in the rider requests. So as promoters, we put on shows from 100 cap size right up to stadium size, and then we've got festivals as well. I've had reported into me from the concert team that they've seen a notable increase in artists asking for vegan or locally procured riders. They want to ensure that their waste is being managed appropriately. They don't want plastic cups to be available at the venues. I know you mentioned earlier that single-use plastic is banned in Scotland, but plastic cups are not banned because they're still seen as recyclable. So we're still seeing areas that there can be massive improvements in Scotland. But coming back to the point about artists, they are starting to make these inquiries and make these requests and ask us as promoters to inform audiences about options for sustainable travel to and from their events, or to host initiatives in the venue that will promote environmental sustainability, or artists are investing in reducing the impact of the merch that they're selling by having merchandise that doesn't come from an unsustainable supply chain or fast fashion supply chain, for example. So yeah, 100% there is an appetite for it. I think the challenge is that even with that appetite, where do we take that? Where do we put that energy? Because when you look at sustainability, broadly speaking, there's all the social side of things. There's the mental health and well-being, your good economic opportunities, and gender equality, and so on. But there's also all the environmental side, which is where I focus. You can, even within the environmental side, climate action, resource efficiency and circularity, food, water efficiency, all of these things, you can end up spread so thin. You think, how on earth are we going to do this? Because it's too much to think about in one go. So that's where the data collection comes in, because it gives you that opportunity to look at what's the biggest slice of the pie in terms of our impact, and B, where do we have the most influence? Where can we make the most difference? I think when I first started, I kind of thought, let's focus on the low hanging fruit. Let's focus on what's most easily achievable in the first instance. So a change that we made initially was moving to a waste contractor who had access to facilities that would allow us to compost more of our waste. And that was a great move. We composted so much of our waste last year that we worked out that it would have fed like an average garden for 500 years or something like that. So that's nice. It's nice to be able to tell that story. But in terms of the actual impact that has, that measurable impact on our whole tonnage of CO2 equivalent emissions, it's quite small. It's the travel, the transport. We think the impact of the food and beverage is quite high, but we don't know that yet because we haven't measured it. That's a project for next summer, hopefully.
So you're really building from the ground up.
Yeah, 100%. We're trying to move. We're trying to affect change at the same time as strategize towards and align ourselves towards what's going to be most impactful in the future.
There's a real opportunity there, because if DF is so invested in that's employing people like you and others, and you're analysing the data, you've got buy-in from artists already, you're saying, and you've got also a huge audience there who plugged in, many of whom will be like me, will be subscribing for ticket alerts and everything. And we get those surveys from gigs. How is your gig? How is your experience? What else would you like to see? You must get feedback from concert goers, gig goers as well, to say we'd like to see more of X, Y, and Z. That's a huge reservoir of knowledge.
Yeah, we had an initiative this year with our comms team called the Play Your Part campaign. So there's 5 climate actions that audiences could take, and it's basically their journey to the festival and at the festival. So we asked them to look at what they were buying in terms of their outfit for the festival, and then before they arrived, look at their travel and transport options, try and choose the most sustainable option there, bring a reusable or refillable water bottle with them, choose a vegan or a vegetarian option when they're at the traders. We then surveyed them. We also asked them to ensure that they used the right bin. That was the last one. We then surveyed them at the event and after the event, asking them what impact those actions were actually having, whether they'd actually noted any of the actions prior to the event, whether there was elements that we could have done better. Could we have offered more facilities for them to refill their water bottles? What was the bin signage of good quality? What could we do to improve the transport options for you? And that's why I said earlier, it's the indication from the audience was we want to be able to get home sustainably. It's fine getting to the event, but it's harder getting home. So
do you get a lot of participation in these kind of surveys as well? I mean, because some people might get them and just say, it's just junk, I'm not going to look at it. Do you actually get a sizable number back?
Yeah, 100%. We had Glasgow Eco Trust doing the surveys for us at Transmit, and their feedback was amazing. They were really encouraged by the Transmit audience, who they're generally quite young, and the assumption might be that maybe they wouldn't be that interested because they're just there to have fun. But they were really engaged with the conversation, and I'm really encouraged to find out how far we can go with sustainability at that festival as well as others.
I guess a lot of it's to do with get up and go and just pushing forward, and even how you got this role. You know, somebody told you about it, you then took that extra step to get in touch, and it sparked a conversation that brought you here now. You say sustainability wasn't your background, but it's clearly a passion. Now that you've had time to be in the role, you know, this podcast is also about encouraging people to find their place in the music industry, to search out their dreams and ambitions themselves. What skill sets or what advice would you give to people who are particularly interested in this element of industry and how they might, look to participate?
Well, first of all, they want to be sure that they're happy to have endless discussions over cups, and whether reusable cups is the best or whether compostable cups is the best, and so on. It's kind of ongoing conversation in sustainability circles.
Where do you fall down on?
Ultimately, reusable is better. It's just about how it's, without getting involved in the detail on it, it's about how it's deployed. But we want to move towards reusable, so the better thing to do is to implement it first and then work out any issues that may arise as a result. It's not quite the most sustainable option year one. It will become the more sustainable option if you start investing in it straight away.
Cupcake tech.
Yeah. Make sure you get a cupcake. But joking aside, the main thing is that you need to be able to communicate with a wide variety of people that come from different backgrounds and perspectives, and you need to have the confidence to communicate with people that will likely have been working in an industry for a lot longer than you have, and they have knowledge and expertise that have built them up to where they are. I don't think this is just in the events industry, but it's in music festivals. Like I said before, it's a multi-stakeholder operation. It's a collaboration between multiple different organisations, and you need to be able to see the world empathically through the eyes of the people that are leading each of these organisations. So the security manager is going to have a different perspective to the site manager. It's going to have a different perspective to the event manager, and so on and so forth. The guys running the traders, the guys operating the bars. Yes, ultimately everybody's kind of focused on we need to make money while we're doing this, but they're going to have different concerns, and you need to be able to listen to what those concerns are, process those, and then reflect them back in a positive way that makes them feel empowered to actually do something that makes the event more environmentally sustainable, without them feeling like they're not able to do what they need to do to get the job done.
Some people feel quite intimidated, imagine, just reaching out to say, how can I get involved? Some people might prefer to look at job adverts. I think there's been initiatives in the past. I think you've worked with Glasgow to have internships. Mm-hmm. What would be the best route for people, particularly those who are maybe at the younger end, or folk who are changing careers? How would you say the industry can embrace all those talents?
An example is earlier this year we worked with the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, and they had the Step Up to Net Zero programme, and that brought in an internship for us for 4 months, and the person that worked with us was able to develop their skills, particularly with regards to research and data collection, and developed a couple of tools for us as well to help us understand the circularity of our business. Like, we more about understanding where we're at right now, and just gave us a bit more resource to be able to do that out with just the festivals, and look at the office and the venue in a bit more detail as well. So my answer to that would be to look out for opportunities like that. Students as well have come to work with us. I had 2 students working with me at Bellahouston and at Transmit. One of them came from an event management background, one of them is from an engineering background. So we are always looking for people to come and join us in those kind of capacities too. I think that the other area would be, if you are invested in sustainability, and there's tons of groups in Glasgow, like I mentioned Glasgow Eco Trust earlier, and there's other organisations that we've worked with, like Revolve, who are a fast fashion focused charity. We've worked with Greenpeace, we've worked with the Eden Project. I think volunteering as well is a great place to start, because that can get you onto our festival sites, and then that then gives you the opportunity to connect with people within the industry and develop those relationships with it, which then give you further opportunities further down the line.
Within DF itself, how do you think people view you and the team in terms of going around, assessing stuff, looking at things? Anything change?
It's an interesting question. I hope that sometimes I think they wonder what I'm up to, because I spend a lot of my time just chasing, especially at this point, we're just coming out of the summer, chasing the data that we're getting from our contractors on our waste and our travel, and our energy consumption. I think that, largely speaking, it's been a super positive response that I've had. I feel like the longer that I'm there, the more integrated I feel with the team. In particular, last year, I felt like I worked more closely with the marketing and communications team. That was the development of the Play Your Part initiatives that I spoke about earlier, because we were communicating that prior to the event on our socials.
You studied this previously as well. You did media and communications, and then you went into the international diplomacy stuff.
Yeah.
All those skills together and communicating that message, has that been quite vital for you? Has that been a tool or a barrier?
It's been a tool for sure. It's like I said before, it's being able to communicate what our needs are as a business with regards to sustainability is key, and that's really where we're at just now. Whilst I talked about data collection quite a lot and initiatives that we put in place, where the business is at now is, okay, what's our strategy for the next few years? I can't really get into detail on it because we're still talking about it, but largely speaking, for me, it's about trying to keep it as simple as possible, because it's up to me to get into the weeds with it and look at the detail. But we need something that can be communicated effectively by anyone in the business. So it's not just me that's talking about it. It's Jeff, our CEO, has the capacity to go out there and talk about what we're doing with regards to climate action and circularity and the communities that we work with. That's the key, is making that strategy as clear cut as humanly possible.
So no two events will be the same, but is there any degree of commonality that's emerging, that sort of structure that this is part of our game plan, we do this all the time?
Yeah, there's basic standards that we've already established now, one of which is introduction of HBO as our primary fuel source. That reduces the carbon footprint of the fuel that we use significantly. The measurements change depending on who you speak to, but it can be as much as 90-odd%. Also focusing on trying to compost as much of our waste as possible. That remains a challenge. It depends on when the waste leaves the site. We only have a certain amount of control over how it's managed and how it's handled, but we communicate that to our customers that we want to compost our cups, we want to compost our food waste, we want to compost the food containers. We know that we can, so if we give them the best opportunity to do that and we separate it all and we try and make sure it gets to the right facilities afterwards.
Does it sound very rock and roll? Does it?
No, it's not rock and roll really, but if we don't do it, then there won't be any rock and roll in the future for us to enjoy. So we have to do it.
Horrible question, but what does your average month look like in sort of festival time?
In festival time, so...
Do you get any sleep, for instance?
August was a really busy time, so we were preparing for Connect, which was a huge success at the end of the month. That's the site at the Royal Highland Centre. That's a case of communicating with the organisations that I was bringing to the site. So Greenpeace, Eden Project, Revolve and Music Broth, coordinating them, making sure that they had everything they needed. We had some talks taking place in the speakeasy tent that I was making sure that was organised. Getting surveys out for collecting our data prior to the event, making sure that the traders and the bars were bringing the right types of materials, because we had a plastic ban on that site, so that included plastic water bottles, and that sucked up a lot of time actually, is just trying to stop the flow of plastic water bottles from coming in, whether that was via the the artist liaison team, there was requests on riders and saying, no, we're not using plastic water bottles, and it can't be plastic. Same goes for everywhere else on the site. So great initiative, but then the work involved in trying to do such a simple thing is actually quite a lot. And then at the same time, I'm still kind of dealing with the work that happens post-Transmit and post the other events that we had on during the summer at Belliston Park as well, collating the data that's coming in from those and getting that ready for analysis and for the reporting that I need to do as part of my job at the end of the summer, which I'm currently in the midst of right now.
So when you're going around all these events or popping into King Tut's or wherever it is your automatic reaction just to put your head into a bin and check it? Or have you actually been able to enjoy some of the summer, and what have been some of the highlights over the piece?
Highlight of the summer so far was, at least in terms of just me enjoying myself, was Young Fathers at Connect. Yeah, they're just such a unique artist. The show was incredible. It's just this amazing energy in the crowd, and that's why we do these things. That's why we want to put on events that are sustainable. I think that the other thing for us at DF is that DF have really high standards when it comes to putting on concerts. We want customer service to be great. We want our event manager Colin puts a huge amount of time and effort into the health and safety side of things and the security side of things, and that's all super important. And that's why they got me trying to bring in sustainability too, because we want to show that we uphold these standards, and sustainability comes alongside all of those things.
Do you think there's an added importance or responsibility to the work DF and others do in terms of enabling these events since COVID? Because there was such a gap, there was such a loss, and certainly from the gigs I've attended this summer, since COVID, there seems to be more of an enthusiasm, a desire to just enjoy it.
Mm. Yeah, the global concert industry has grown massively since COVID for a variety of reasons. And
is that above pre-COVID?
That's above pre-COVID, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. There's just this. I think the appetite is partly driven by the downturn in terms of record sales and things like that. So there's the streaming industry has meant that artists are much more focused on the touring side of what they do. And I think also people want to have this experience of being in a crowd among their peers, in their community, singing with their friends. It's a spiritual experience going to a gig. It's something that I know and love it, and it's been part of my life for such a long time, but I don't think there's not many experiences like it. And I think it's really part of what makes us human, is that desire to connect and be part of a big crowd. So and that feeds into sustainability as well, because that human emotion, that human experience, I think when you create an event that feels sustainable, that ticks those boxes, that feels environmentally safe and clean and has less pollution coming from generators, and people have travelled there safely and sustainably, and they know they're going to get home safely and sustainably. All of these things kind of add into that overall experience.
So you've been a touring musician, you've been involved in putting on and producing tours, and now you're part of this huge company, DF, part of Validation. Around the world, these names are recognised. How do you feel personally about where you've got to?
On a personal level, this last year or so has been to be totally honest, has been a revelation. I was the type of person in my younger years, and admittedly this isn't unusual, but I wasn't a particularly ambitious or self-driven type of person. I see some of the younger people that work at DF, and they're truly amazing individuals, because they're so focused, and they're already so wise and so driven in terms of what they do. there's no way I could have done that when I was in my early 20s. But now, having discovered my passion for addressing the climate crisis, addressing the biodiversity crisis, working in sustainability, and also recognising the impact that the events industry can have in that area and the influence that we can have at DF Concerts, it's been brilliant. I feel really good about the future and feel really enthusiastic about where I can go next with this role.
You talked about the dynamism of your younger colleagues there.
Mm-hmm.
What was the music of your youth? What sort of formed your passion, and do you still carry it with you?
I mean, it's a wide variety of things, as it always is with people that are passionate about music. I had that indie phase where I listened to the Libertines and Block Party and Interpol, the Strokes, all that kind of stuff. But I'm a big hip hop fan as well, and also just in Glasgow bands, like in particular Frightened Rabbit were a big influence on me. The band that I played in, toured with them a fair bit, and just the ethos that band had in terms of focus on community and loving your fans as people that are on the same wavelength as you and that are part of a culture that you're trying to build. I just found that really beautiful.
We're going to do some quick questions, which is how you two wrap up.
Okay.
The last song or podcast you listened to before meeting today?
I can't remember the last song exactly. The last thing I listened to is a massive playlist that Father John Misty has made on Spotify. So it's full of absolute gold. So I can recommend that.
Okay, would you choose an exclusive album launch or a festival?
Festival.
Favourite food in Ryder?
Hummus and crisps.
If you could collaborate on a project with someone alive or dead, who or what would it be?
Keanu Reeves. He just killed it.
Restaurant, cinema, or lazy Sunday brunch?
Sunday brunch.
Digital addict, or can you switch off?
Switch off.
What does life after this career look like for you?
Living in a cottage on an island somewhere.
One artist everyone should be listening to right now.
Boy Genius.
And from then to now for you, what was the good stuff in between?
From then to now for me, what was the good stuff in between? Peace and equanimity. And
if you could give one piece of advice to anyone listening to this right now in terms of getting involved in the industry in any aspect, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to approach people and express who you really are.
Kevin Mackay, we've been buzzed by helicopters, by bees and wasps, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nothing's gonna bring me down.
That was episode 6 of the Good Stuff In Between podcast. Thanks for listening. Very grateful indeed to Kevin Mackay from DF Concerts and Events for coming on and give us a glimpse into what really is one of the most important and fascinating careers in the modern music industry. That's all for us for this week. The Good Stuff In Between was written, edited and produced by myself, Shaun Milne at Skog Media Associates. You can find us at skogmedia.com. The show's title music is Nothing's Going to Bring Me Down, courtesy of Willie Campbell. You can find out more by him at williecampbell.co.uk. I'll be back soon with another episode wherever you get your podcasts.